the NHRA. Gainesville, Florida, located in the north-central part of the state, is noted for the University of Florida and the famed Florida Gators. This area is also well known for Gainesville Raceway, for the past 16 years, the home of the NHRA Gatornationals. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and this is a race of first. The Gatornationals 1 year ago on our coverage on Diamond P Sports saw the first ever 260-mile-an-hour speeds in a quarter mile. It also is the first event ever covered by Diamond P Sports 10 years ago in its coverage of NHRA Championship drag racing. Of course, 10 years ago, it wasn't quite like this, with a $3 million facility to broadcast from. And, of course, the cars have changed. Back then, Don Prudhomme won Funny Car with a 6.24, 236-mile-an-hour run. Right, Steve Evans?
And Dave, don't you know that on the 10th anniversary of that 1976 victory, Don the Snake Prudhomme would like to collect his 5th Gator Nationals title here today. You know, back in '76, and in fact until just recently, what a funny car driver needed was raw courage and good starting line reflexes. Well, those two things are still very important, but now these cars are equipped with buttons and levers and bells and whistles, all of which control the fuel system from inside the car. In just 5 seconds, a man like Don Prudhomme has to make as many as 5 separate movements of all of these levers. And you know there's no way he's going to look down at 260 miles an hour, so it all has to be done by feel. It takes the manual dexterity of a magician and the concentration of a fighter pilot to drive one of these cars today.
And Steve, no one takes the complexities of these funny cars more seriously than the man in the far lane, Don Prudhomme. Earlier today in first-round funny car competition, he confronted John Ford, and it was a superlative run for Prudhomme, 5.78 seconds at over 251 miles an hour, serving notice that the Snake may have recaptured that elusive performance that was missing last season. The Gator Nationals in Gainesville, Florida has been trouble-plagued with rain. Today it has been raining on and off all day long. Right now, though, the track is dry and the cars are getting started for the second round of competition in Top Fuel Eliminator under very threatening skies. The first car to come to life is the crowd favorite, Big Daddy Don Garlits from Ocala, Florida. He has won this event 3 times, the last time back in 1978. Garlits is always on the leading edge of technology.
If you're a veteran of our drag racing telecast, you know that there's been a big problem with the Top Fuel racers pitching off their front tires at the finish line. In fact, after 3 successive tire losses at last year's U.S. Nationals, Don Garlits was heard to say, something has got to be done. Well, thanks to Goodyear, something has been done. It has debuted right here at the Gator Nationals, the new front runner tire. Now, unlike the imported motorcycle tires used previously, this has an awful lot of wire running around the tire for stability. It has a much deeper bead for more contact with the wheel. And more importantly, most importantly, it is tubeless because it's a tube that can wrap around the steering, creating some big problems. It mounts on a special streaker 2-piece aluminum wheel that has a rubber O-ring to prevent any kind of air loss. Now, Goodyear has spun this tire in their laboratory to 320 miles an hour, and it stays on the wheel. So apparently the problem is now solved, and a tip of our hat to Goodyear for a big step forward in safety.
Don Garlits and several other of the Top Fuel racers are using these new wheels and tires. Here in round number 2 competition, it is Bill Mullins from Pelham, Alabama, to race against Don Garlits. Mullins, a former alcohol dragster driver, moving up last season to Top Fuel. For Don Garlits, he is the consummate Top Fuel racer, campaigning at the age of 53 and just as strong today as he has been in the past 25 years of this sport. Garlits had retired from NHRA competition for a couple of years, then last season teamed up with his old partner Art Malone and came back and dominated the U.S. Nationals and the World Finals, winning the last 2 major events of last season. For Bill Mullins, the move into Top Fuel has been dramatic. He has been over 263 miles an hour in the car owned by John Kerry. But the obvious favorite in this race is Big Daddy Don Garlits. This is his home racetrack. The huge crowd is behind him 200%, and Garlits is as loose and cool as we have seen him in years. When you're Big Daddy and you're racing in Florida, it's as the sign says, Big Daddy rules. The staging procedure's almost completed. Both drivers concentrating on a good light, and it is Bill Mullins off the mark. First, he loses control momentarily, but stays ahead of Garlits, and what enough stops it. A slight fire on Mullins' engine. It goes out immediately. Look at the time, 5.67 seconds, speed of 250 miles an hour, and the upset of the race has occurred here in the second round of Top Fuel. Bill Mullins had a slight advantage off the starting line. Then he started to smoke the tires. The car gets just a little bit sideways. He recovers. Garlett's, though, in the middle of the course, having a few problems, and Mullins begins to drive by. A slight fire at the top end, and look, by just a few feet, Bill Mullins, in 1/100th of a second difference, wins the race.
That has got to be your biggest win since going into the Top Fuel category.
Without a doubt, without a doubt. I know they'll be going crazy. That's the biggest win of my life, I guess, right there.
Yeah,
I won 2 national events, but neither one of them were any bigger than this right here.
And neither one were in Top Fuel. You had a slight hole shot, and you needed it. It was within inches.
Yeah, I wish I could have got a little bit more of a hole shot.
Going into the semifinals, and here comes a crew that is delirious.
Steve, on the starting line, Bill Mullins' crew was as excited as I have ever seen any race crew as Bill Mullins has pulled off the upset, defeating Don Garlett. Our next pair of cars ready to begin the procedures leading to the race. This is Gary Ormsby doing the burnout. In the far lane, here comes Frank Bradley. These are the ultimate cars in competition in championship drag racing. The Top Fuel dragsters, 2,500 horsepower engine sitting behind the driver. In this case, from Napa, California, it's Frank Bradley. His competition is the man that finished 4th in the world last season. Another Californian from Roseville comes Gary Ormsby. You saw him finish in the runner-up spot to Joe Amato in the recent Diamond P Sports coverage of the NHRA Winter Nationals. But now it's the Gator Nationals, and Ormsby is against Frank Bradley in our second round of Top Fuel racing. Ormsby is committed to making a strong run for the World Championship this season and is regarded by many as one of the favorites. In this race, Bradley in the far lane. It is Ormsby in the near lane. Bradley off. And an explosion by Bradley. The supercharger exploding, parts flying everywhere. A ball of flame. Ormsby goes through. He's okay. But look at the engine. The supercharger laying off to the side. Bradley turns the car off the racetrack, and he has got to be very disappointed. He had a great start on Ormsby, but the engine explosion puts him out of competition. As we watch again, you see that start. Look at the advantage going to Bradley, lifting the front wheels ever so gently, and then disaster strikes. The engine explodes. Ormsby goes on for the win and moves into the semifinals, but for Frank Bradley, his day at the Gator Nationals is over. The 1985 Gator Nationals is being brought to you by Motorcraft. Quality products for all makes of cars and trucks. Motorcraft exceeds the need. And by Hawaiian Punch. Nothing tastes like Hawaiian Punch. You only have to taste it once. Go Hawaiian. And by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. A rain-soaked Gator Nationals continues in just a moment. Fans of this sport that so many have stayed through the changing Florida weather. Earlier, they saw the upset of the race.
Well, even in defeat and even in the rain, the Florida fans continue to crowd around Don Garlett's car. And Don, I know how badly you wanted to win the Gator Nationals for them.
Well, yeah, it's a big disappointment. You know, of course, we were hoping we'd have good weather for the fans and everything, and it's kind of turned today a little sour for me, but there'll be another race day.
And if you got to get beat, at least by a fellow Southerner and a guy that's been around this sport almost as long as yourself, Bill Mullins.
Yeah, Bill Mullins is no newcomer to the game. We're very good friends, been friends a long time, and they've got that car running real good.
This man is no newcomer to championship drag racing. He won his first NHRA title in 1967. From Ypsilanti, Michigan, is Connie Coletta racing against Dick LaHaie. LaHaie has seen the winner's circle at an NHRA championship event, winning his first event back in 1980 at the Summer Nationals. LaHaie from Lansing, Michigan, in the car that is unpainted. That's just polished aluminum. Coletta's experience in this sport ranges from the Top Fuel dragsters like he's driving today through funny cars to even being a crew chief. He served as the crew chief when Shirley Muldowney won her first world champion title. Coletta psyching himself, getting ready for the second round race against Dick LaHaie. LaHaie has been in Top Fuel racing nearly 20 years in his own right, and the story of his crew chief is something just a little bit unique. It is his daughter, Kim. She performs the major mechanical work on this over 2,500 horsepower top fuel dragster. Coletta and LaHaie. LaHaie in the far lane, creeping forward, the final staging procedure complete, and they leave the starting on the parachute coming out for Connie Coletta. The tires just smoking as the parachute tries to stop it. LaHaie, though, on a good run as Coletta coasts through the finish line. But look at the numbers for LaHaie, 5.62 seconds at over 252 miles an hour. Again, in replay, we can see exactly what happened. LaHaie with a very slight advantage off the starting line, and instantly, as the clutch comes out on Connie Coletta's car, so does the parachute. Deployed behind him, Coletta being slowed by the parachute, the tires just smoking. The parachute coming to full bloom right after the tree, giving the race to Dick LaHaie. For LaHaie, he's now advanced into the semifinal round with an outstanding 5.62 seconds, and we talk to you about the crew chief. Here she is, Kim LaHaie. Don't think of Kim as daddy's little helper. She's the one that sets this car up. Here's the man that is the reigning world champion. He is the defending champion. And as you saw 1 year ago on our Diamond P Sports coverage, this the first man over 260 miles an hour in drag racing. Joe Amato from Old Forge, Pennsylvania, debuted his car here last season with that big, tall wing that has now become commonplace in all top fuel cars. His competition, another veteran East Coast racer from Edison, New Jersey, is Grant Stoms, driving the car owned by Tom Stevens. Amato, on the leading edge of development, can sometimes pay the price. In the first round of top fuel competition against Gary Beck, Amato had the race well in hand. And then a blower explosion, his third in the last two races, leveled the top of the engine, the fire continuing on as Amato passed through the finish line traps. No problems in getting the car stopped, but a very expensive engine explosion. Steve went to the Amato pit to find out just what happened.
There's blower explosions and there's blower explosions. These are the pieces brought back to Joe Amato's pits by NHRA Safety Safari. He really has nothing to do with them but carry them on down to the Aluminum Recycling Center. You figure just this one piece here weighs about 15 pounds. That'll give you some idea of the force involved in one of these blower backfires. Now, what generally happens is the intake valve hangs open in one of the cylinders. That allows the fire out of the combustion chamber to get up into the blower, and kaboom. More important, really, than the $3,000 supercharger, however, is that all of the fuel system in this explosion was lost as well. And that is really the speed secret on any of these very quick top fuel motors. So Joe Amato in the background with his crew installing another engine to go after him in round number 2. Boy, this was a bad one.
The work may be over for Joe Amato, but the concern is still there, as is shown by this crewman looking over that new engine, making sure there are no leaks in the new fuel system. Grant Stoms may be thinking, this may be my day. He just saw the upset of Bill Mullins over Don Garlits. He saw the explosion of Joe Amato in round number 1. He knows that Amato has got to be concerned about the performance of this new engine, and Stoms may be thinking, this is it. This is the day of the underdog. But Amato will be trying to stop that. Amato, having won the World Championship last year at over 260 miles an hour right here 1 year ago, certainly has got to be considered the favorite in this race. But it's anybody's guess as to how that engine will perform. Stoms in the far lane, Amato in the near lane. A great start for Stoms, but look at the horsepower from Amato. He just drives by Stoms, and the times show it. 5.52 seconds, and that sets up our semifinals. It'll be Mullins against Amato, with Amato having lane choice by virtue of the quicker elapsed time. Ormsby against LaHaie. LaHaie has lane choice. Now let's go down to the funny car pits and Steve Evans.
Earlier, I talked about all the things the modern-day funny car driver has to do in this cockpit in just 5 seconds. Don Perdum, show us what some of those things are.
Well, Steve, we have what they call a high-low system over here. The car runs on a lean system, and then this valve, when you leave the starting line, you have to have that on, and then you hit the throttle. As you out about 200 feet or so, you pull another lever on. Then you shift the car, then you have to reshut this lever off. Then at the same time, if it's not performing right, you have another button here that you can work, and you do that all in 6 seconds.
Well, and then you've got to get the brakes, the fuel shut off, and the parachute.
I didn't even go through all those. Of course, you have to shift it, and there's a lot of other things involved, too.
And you know, if you move one of these fuel levers in the wrong direction, well, this could be the result.
Crash and fire for Bob Gottschalk as the engine exploding just before the finish line in qualifying. The car enveloped in flame with Gottschalk inside that cockpit. He hits the fire bottles. You see the fire begin to go down inside the car, but it's still burning outside the firewall. Burning underneath the car. The parachute goes. There goes the rear tire, and Gottschalk loses control. From the time the NHRA Safety Safari first spotted the fire in Bob Gottschalk's car to the moment they responded on the scene, only 14 seconds had elapsed. It is because of those safety procedures that Bob Gottschalk was able to return to Gainesville Raceway earlier this morning and talk to Steve Evans.
Bob Gottschalk, boy, is it good to see you back at the racetrack. How are you?
I'm fine. I suffered some burns on my hands and on the tops of my feet, but other than that, I'm in fine shape.
Bob Gottschalk, a very lucky man. We'll be back with the second round of Funny Car at the Gator Nationals in just a moment. In Funny Car. I'm Dave McClelland, along with Steve Evans, and Don Prudhomme just completed his burnout. This is John Collins. He's getting ready to do those long, tire-smoking burnouts that are designed for two purposes. One, to clean the tires. Two, to get them as hot as absolutely possible. These race tires are designed to operate at the highest temperature possible. Thus, the only way to get them hot is to actually burn them. John Collins from Long Beach, California, finished in the runner-up position 1 year ago at the Gator Nationals. He's racing against the longtime veteran Don Prudhomme. 4 times he won the World Champions title. We told you earlier, he's been having some problems, but he found the performance in round number 1. Can he duplicate it here? Both drivers very methodical about their approach to the starting line procedures. Collins finishes staging. A good start. Prudhomme beginning to lose control. He crosses over the center line, automatically loses. And John Collins on the quickest run of his career at 5.74 seconds at over 256 miles an hour, while Prudhomme, losing by crossing that center line, coasts across the finish and takes the first turn off. Here's the man that won it all last year at the Gator Nationals. This is Kenny Bernstein. He is also the first funny car ever over 260 miles an hour. He did that 1 year ago. In the second round of racing, Bernstein is against Tom Hoover. Hoover, a 20-year veteran of this sport, has experience not only in the funny cars, but he started his career as a top fuel racer, then made the switch about 10 years ago. While Hoover and Bernstein continue the preparations for their race, let's go down to the far end of the track and Steve Evans with John Collins.
So John Collins not only gets around Don Prudhomme, but John, your best ever elapsed time of 5:74. You have found the combination, apparently.
Yeah, Steve, the team's worked real hard all weekend on it, and we ran a 5:76 first round, 5:74 this round. We've changed engines, changed fuel systems. Larry Frazier, Bob Kreitz, I owe it to them. They're the ones that done it.
John Collins paying tribute to his crew, preparing his car to that 5:74 to defeat Don Prudhomme. Kenny Bernstein, the first funny car racer ever to eclipse that magic 260-mile-an-hour mark, is the defending Gator Nationals champion. Racing against him from Maple Grove, Minnesota, comes Tom Hoover. Hoover, like Gottschalk, had an engine explosion and fire in qualifying, but Hoover's fire not nearly as severe. The question was, however, could Hoover make the necessary repairs to be in competition? Steve talked with him.
Well, Tom, you and your crew had a bit of work to do after the fire in qualifying. I sure did. We had a long drought for a while, run a 580 number, and in the shutoff area, I had a bad rod bearing and pitched a rod out, and I had a handful there that afternoon, but we got it shut down, got it rebuilt, and everything looks pretty good right now.
I'm sure for Hoover it does look good. In round number 1, he defeated the quickest funny car in the world, that one owned by Roland Leong and driven by Rick Johnson. Here he is racing against Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein's got to be thinking somewhat about some handling problems he's been experiencing, not only in qualifying, but in his first round victory over the 2-time Gator Nationals champion and 2-time world champion Frank Hawley. His crew chief Dale Armstrong giving final instructions to Kenny Bernstein as both drivers approach those light beams that are stretched across the starting line at Gainesville Raceway, indicating they're in the proper spot for a good start. Hoover smoking the tires right off the starting line. Bernstein straight down the center of his lane. Kenny has apparently solved his handling problems as his crew heads down to pick him up. But what a disappointment this has to have been for Tom Hoover, working so hard to get here, then smoking the tires right off the line. The times show at 5.71 seconds at over 251 miles an hour. Bernstein says, look out, everybody, I want 2 in a row. Our next pair of cars already started. The Corvette of Tom McEwen is in the far lane. In the near lane, the Blue Max, owned by Raymond Beadle and driven now by Little John Lombardo. The 5.71 second elapsed time you saw just a moment ago by Kenny Bernstein, the quickest time thus far of eliminations. Let's join Steve.
Well, Kenny Bernstein, who was so very concerned about the handling of his Mercury Topaz, is going to be thrilled with low ET of eliminations. 571, Kenny, straight as a string.
Oh, good. That was great. Well, Dale and the crew made a lot of changes on it, Steve, to anticipate that left-hand move it's been making, and it helped a lot.
Well, those kind of elapsed times, if you can run them steadily, that might be enough to repeat as champion here.
Well, I hope so. You know, that at least gets you in the game. There's a lot of 70 cars, though, but it's a nice start.
John Lombardo in the driver's cockpit of the Blue Max funny car. As car owner and former driver and former 3-time world champion Raymond Beadle decided over the winter that he was going to move out of the driver's seat to spend more time with his other racing interests and other business. Lombardo will be racing against Tom McEwen from Fountain Valley, California. McEwen is regarded by many as one of the premier drivers ever to go down a quarter-mile racetrack. He has driven practically every type of car known, from top fuel dragsters to funny cars to some of the more experimental and exotic vehicles. But over the past few years, he's been concentrating on this Corvette-bodied car. It is Lombardo against McEwen. In the near lane, Lombardo beginning to pull away in the Blue Max and wins it. Little John Lombardo, 5.80 seconds at 251 miles an hour. That advances him one more round into the semifinals. Back on the starting line, our next pair ready to go. The Oldsmobile, owned by Larry Minor and driven by Ed the Ace McCulloch. In the far lane, coming out with tires smoking, is Dale Puldy, along with his partner Mike Hamby, campaigning a Pontiac Firebird creation. For Ed McCulloch, after a few years' retirement, he came back in what many people regard as the best ride in the business. For Dale Puldy, the Granada Hills-based team has been campaigning for several years with great success. In 1978, Dale Puldy won the funny car title here at the Gator Nationals. 2 years ago, he finished in the runner-up spot. Ed McCulloch is the sole remaining driver of the Larry Minor team. Both Minor and Gary Beck, racing in Top Fuel Eliminator, are out of competition. Minor lost to Grant Stahms in round 1, and you saw what happened to Gary Beck on that engine-exploding pass by Joe Amato, yet Amato won the race. So here's Ed McCulloch in the Oldsmobile, the only remaining car of Larry Minor's team, matched against Dale Puldy. Puldy into a wheel stand, smoking the tires. The supercharger lets go for Ed McCulloch. Puldy through the quarter mile, 5.91 seconds. That's way off the pace of the other 570 cars. But for McCulloch, the engine explodes, laying back the fuel injector onto the windshield. And McCulloch quietly, silently coasts to a stop. In slow motion, we can watch it much better. Puldy and McCulloch leave the starting line as if they are tied together. Then Puldy begins to smoke the tires. So does McCulloch. And then the explosion. The supercharger lets go. Puldy recovers from the tire smoke to continue on with a 5.91 second elapsed time. From a different point of view, both cars into the wheel stands. Then the engine explosion. There goes the injector laid back against the windshield. The raw fuel pumping out of the injector line. Ed McCulloch is out of the car. He's okay, but out of competition. This now sets the semifinal pairings in Funny Car Eliminator. Dale Palmy against John Lombardo, with Lombardo having lane choice, and Kenny Bernstein against John Collins, with Bernstein having lane choice. Let's go to Steve Evans in Don Prudhomme's pit area.
So the postmortem already going on. You're already trying to figure out for the next race what happened?
Yeah, that's right. We have a race next weekend, and now's the time to look at it, and we'll just have to see.
You know, the cars are so violent anymore that if the least little thing goes wrong, you're history.
Well, that's right. You know, so much horsepower, and you're trying to put it to the ground, and the fuel systems are very, very complicated. You know, we've been struggling with that for a long time, and apparently we're still struggling with it.
Well, let's hope you find it quickly.
Thank you.
Don Prudhomme and his crew trying to find out what went wrong. Joe Amato and his crew getting ready for the semifinals in Top Fuel Eliminator. We'll be coming back to the Gator Nationals in just a moment. Nationals from Gainesville Raceway near Gainesville, Florida. We're getting set for the semifinals in Pro Stock Eliminator. Bob Glidden will go against Dempsey Hardy. Glidden having the lane choice. Gordy Rivera runs Warren Johnson. Johnson has the lane choice. If you follow Pro Stock racing, one name that you always expect to see in the semifinals is missing.
Dave, a week ago tomorrow, at a track in Oklahoma, 4-time world champion and 3-time Gator Nationals champion Lee Shepard was fatally injured. At the request of his fellow Pro Stock drivers, their cars were brought up the racetrack in a missing man formation earlier today. And missing in that pole position that he so often occupied, Lee Shepard. The drivers also, for the remainder of this season, will carry a black slash through their numbers in tribute to Lee. I had many long and friendly conversations with Lee Shepard, but never was that camera present. And we always talked about the things that were truly important to him. Family and friends and children and sports. He really didn't care for the attention that television offered, a very modest and humble man. And the thing that always impressed me in our very short winter interviews with Lee was that he seemed to feel some of the disappointment of the driver he had just defeated. We'll miss him.
All of us at Diamond P Sports extend our heartfelt sympathies to the friends and family of Lee Shepard. Bob Glidden driving his Ford Thunderbird in the semifinal round of action against the Pontiac Trans Am Firebird, driven by Dempsey Hardy. The car owned by Jerry Hurley and Jeff Velde. Dempsey Hardy, based now in Vero Beach, California. Last season, finishing number 3 in the world was Bob Glidden. The Ford Thunderbird out of Whiteland, Indiana, is the quickest car in all of Pro Stock racing, setting a new national record at the recently completed NHRA Winter Nationals. Glidden will be in the far lane. It will be Dempsey Hardy in the near lane. The pressure here has got to be on Hardy. Glidden, obviously the quicker car, not only in qualifying, but in the first 2 rounds of eliminations. Hardy begins to roll forward and rolls through the lights, giving him a red light automatically. The win going to Bob Glidden. What a strong run. Glidden continues through with a fine 7.57 seconds at 184 miles an hour. While back on the starting line, the big red light continues to glow for Dempsey Hardy. Warren Johnson, number 2 in the world last season in this Oldsmobile, seems to have this track well in hand. He has already recorded the quickest elapsed time, in fact 2 of them back-to-back at 7.55 seconds. Racing against him from Yuma, Arizona in the Chevrolet Camaro is Gordy Rivera. Rivera beginning to come into his own in Pro Stock racing, now in the semifinals at the Gator Nationals. But Warren Johnson from Duluth, Georgia, has got the performance mark that everyone is shooting at. Johnson in the far lane, Gordy Rivera in the near lane. These cars run on gasoline. They are limited to 500 cubic inches using 2 4-barrel carburetors. The minimum weight on the car, 2,350 pounds, including the driver. Johnson in the far lane with the Oldsmobile. Rivera in the near lane with the Chevrolet. Idling into the staging beams and lots of RPM, and Gordy Rivera with a tremendous hole shot. But the horsepower of Warren Johnson's Oldsmobile too much, and easy win as he pulls away. Arlene Johnson, Warren's wife, reflecting the joy in the victory as Warren Johnson now moves into the finals against Bob Glidden. Johnson's time, another 7.55 seconds, a speed of 184. Glidden against Johnson, with Johnson having lane choice. It'll be Top Fuel Eliminator coming up next at the Gator Nationals.
The enemy. No name, so
Got the semifinal round of Top Fuel Eliminator on the starting line. This is the upset winner thus far. Bill Mullins, driving John Kerry's car, took the measure of Don Garlits in the previous round. But this time, he may have an even tougher opponent, as Joe Amato, the defending champion and reigning world champion, lines up alongside of Mullins. Amato, using those new Goodyear front tires that have been spun to over 300 miles an hour, apparently solving the front tire problem that has been plaguing Top Fuel racing for the past several years. And it's a red light start for Mullins. He leaves the starting line just a hair too soon, automatically gives the win to Amato. Jerry Amato, Joe's wife, shows her pleasure in the win at 5.65 seconds. For the second year in a row, Joe Amato moves into the final round. As we take a look again in our Diamond P Sports replay, you can see some oil smoke puffing out of Bill Mullins' car. There you see the red light. He left too soon. That means he left before the green light came on, thus giving the win automatically to Amato. Back at the starting line, Dick LaHaie getting ready to go. LaHaie, one of the most consistent drivers in the business, may need all of that as he is racing the man that is currently number 2 in the World Championship points chase. Gary Ormsby finished in the runner-up spot to Joe Amato at the recently completed Winter Nationals. That makes him number 2. Amato has now won and moved into the finals of the Gator Nationals. If Ormsby wins, he will keep pace with Amato. But Dick LaHaie is trying to bring a halt to that at the moment. Kim LaHaie standing looking on. She's the crew chief on her father's car, Dick LaHaie, in the far lane. Ormsby into the staging beam. Now LaHaie. Both drivers waiting patiently. And a great start for LaHaie. A tremendous hole shot as Dick LaHaie's car just bursts off the starting line and holds on to take the win. 5.70 seconds. Steve?
Joe Amato watching his old friend Dick LaHaie get into the final round, where, Joe, you will get a shot at him yourself.
The best news, we can win a 570. We've got lane choice. Dick's a good boy. We really like to see him do good.
But the cheering was for lane choice.
Well, no, not for lane choice. Well, we're cheering for the World Championship right now because Ormsby's right behind us. And that's 200 points. We just moved ahead of him. You know, you got to go every round by round. That's the way you be the world champion.
Well, you've been conservative so far today, but I have a feeling the final round all the stops come out.
Well, all the stops come out because we're not going to worry about the blower then or anything else. You know, we're going to try and, you know, go out. The only trouble with that, if we do run real fast, it won't be any kind of a record because we have no backup.
See you on the starting line.
For the second year in a row, Joe Amato is in the Top Fuel finals at the Gator Nationals. This year, he is racing Dick LaHaie in the far lane. LaHaie did a superlative job of driving in the semifinals as he strapped about a 1 car-length hole shot on Gary Ormsby. As the cars continued down track, Ormsby tried to make up the difference, but was unable to do so. 5.70 to a much quicker 5.57.
Good news is there was a bright green light, and you're in the finals against Joe Amato, who will be tough.
Well, Joe's always tough, but I've raced him before in the finals, and I like Joe, and we're all kind of family, and the best man will win this one.
You gave up lane choice. Will that hurt you at all?
I've been running in the lane that nobody wants all weekend anyway.
We'll have a good final round. Dick LaHaie, Joe Amato.
And Dick LaHaie has mastered that lane. Joe Amato, though, has the lane choice in the Top Fuel final. Here's the semifinal round of Funny Car Eliminator, and we've had a swap of lanes. This is John Collins now in the near lane and Kenny Bernstein in the far lane. If you'll remember, Bernstein had the lower elapsed time of these two cars. He had the lane choice. Moved now from the right-hand lane, where he'd been running previously throughout the day, into that left-hand lane. For John Collins in the previous round, he recorded the quickest elapsed time ever of his career at 5.74 seconds, but Bernstein was just a heartbeat ahead of that. Bernstein and Collins. Collins losing control, spinning the tires off the starting line, and it is Bernstein through the finish line lights. The crew showing their reaction to a new national record of 5.64 seconds at over 256 miles an hour. The next two cars already running on the starting line. This is Raymond Beadle's Blue Max, driven by John Lombardo. Across the way in the far lane, the Pontiac Firebird of Dale Baldy and Mike Hamby. Let's go down to Steve Evans with Kenny Bernstein.
That was a picture-perfect run from our standpoint. What about from your standpoint?
It was real good. It was loose in the middle of the race course. After when I shifted the car, it really got loose and moved over towards the center line. But that's just the way it is. It still made it through, so it was a nice run.
All right, let's go back to the starting line and see who Kenny Bernstein's opponent will be in the finals of the Gator Nationals.
Steve, Kenny is the defending champion in the Gator Nationals. He'll be racing either Little John Lombardo driving the Blue Max or Dale Foldy driving that Pontiac Firebird. Foldy, if you'll remember on the previous round, had a wheel stand and some tire smoking problems. If he can overcome that, he is going to give Little John Lombardo a tough run. Another wheel standing, tire smoking start for Foldy. He gives it all he's got, but it's not enough as John Lombardo pulls away at the finish line, and the Blue Max is in the finals, 5.76 seconds at over 255 miles an hour. As we go back to the starting line and watch again, the car in the far lane, the red Pontiac Firebird, with the tires smoking, the wheels in the air, Foldy trying to keep control.
Well, what a final we have set up for the Gators. You, John Lombardo, set the record just a few weeks ago at 5.68. Kenny Bernstein just took it away from you with a 5.64. What a matchup.
Yeah, it should be a good race. We've got lots of power. The car's running great. All we've got to do is we've been real careful not to smoke the tire.
Our funny car final, Kenny Bernstein against John Lombardo, and obviously Bernstein having lane choice, as we'll be coming back to the Gator Nationals in Gainesville, Florida, has got 3 defending champions in the final. Warren Johnson in Pro Stock is being challenged by Bob Glidden. It is the classic matchup of the factory hot rods. This is a Ford Thunderbird driven by Glidden from Whiteland, Indiana. He won the recent Winter Nationals Championship, and in doing so established a new elapsed time record. Warren Johnson wheels an Oldsmobile. Remember, both of these cars are powered by engines limited to 500 cubic inches, 2 4-barrel carburetors, and racing gasoline only. No exotic fuels used in Pro Stock Eliminator. Lots of RPM on the start and a tremendous hole shot for Warren Johnson in the Oldsmobile. He pulls ahead of Glidden right off the starting line and pulls it through to the finish. And Warren Johnson wins his second Gator Nationals in a row. A dejected Etta Glidden turns away, while an obviously elated Arlene Johnson runs across the track to offer her condolences and a big hug to Etta Glidden. As they say, it's like family in Pro Stock racing. Johnson 7.60 at 183 miles an hour. Here you have a better vantage point of the whole shot by the Oldsmobile and Warren Johnson. He pulls ahead of Glidden right at the start, and Bob Glidden in the Ford T-Bird was trying to play catch-up the entire 1,320 feet. But it was not to be this day, as Warren Johnson wins his second race in a row.
Warren Johnson wins his second consecutive Gator Nationals, and you won it all the way. You were off the mark first, and it was really not a contest at the finish line.
Well, I liked the win of the race, but it was kind of disappointing because I didn't run another 55. So, but this race is a really significant one for me. Like I said before, I've never won 2 NHRA consecutive races, and I really have to say this race belongs to the crew just as well as it belongs to me, because the fact that they prepared the car well, which is an example of the 55 runs. A consecutive car is a consistent piece, and all I have to do is sit in and drive it.
And the fans go and watch the funny cars and the top fuel dragsters, how hard they work on those cars at the races. All your work really takes place at the shop, 80-hour weeks.
That's correct, Steve. All our work is definitely at the shop. We don't have time to finesse these motors at the racetrack because there's too much intricate hand labor involved on these motors, porting cylinder heads, massaging pistons, and so forth, where their type of racing is based on just replacing parts only, not really finessing them as we try to do.
Nice job.
Thank you, Steve.
Warren Johnson repeating as the Gator Nationals champion in Pro Stock Eliminator. We've got another defending champion, Kenny Bernstein, in the far lane. Last year was the first funny car over 260 miles an hour at the Gator Nationals. He won the event. Now he is in the final. His competition is the man from Dallas, Texas, Raymond Beadle, and the Blue Max, with Little John Lombardo doing the driving. The Ford Mustang-bodied car of Lombardo is at a slight performance disadvantage in this run, as in the semifinals, he was some 0.12 of a second slower than Kenny Bernstein. And smoking the tires off the starting line is Lombardo. Bernstein, on an easy run, wins the Gator Nationals for the second year in a row. The elated crew jumping into the car to head down track to pick pick up their driver, Kenny Bernstein. There you see the times, 5.70 at over 254 miles an hour. As we watch again, John Lombardo said he had not smoked the tires all day, but he picked the worst time to do it in the finals as the tires losing traction, and almost as if he is on another burnout, John Lombardo has to call it a halt.
Well, first Warren Johnson makes it 2 in a row. Now Kenny Bernstein, 2 Gator Nationals victories in a row.
Oh, that's super. We're just tickled to death. Steve, needless to say, thank all our fans, Budweiser Motorcraft and Ford, and especially Dale Armstrong and Jeff Scarp and the crew guys.
You know, I know you wanted both ends of the record. You got one in. That's bonus points towards a world title. The engine from down here anyway sounded a little ragged right off of the line, and maybe that's where the speed went.
Well, it may have been. We were afraid to really hop it up too much more from the 64 run because we didn't want to smoke the tires to get the mile per hour back. But our one goal here was to win the Winston World Points right here to go to the championship, so that's what we did.
A big step towards that right here.
Hey, I appreciate it. You bet.
Fine job by Kenny Bernstein and the entire crew.
Steve, it's 2 out of 3 at this point of our defending champions in our professional finals at the Gator Nationals. Kenny Bernstein winning his second Gator Nationals title in a row. Back in the top fuel pit area, Kim LaHaie, the crew chief, on her father's car doing the wrenching, getting set for the finals against Joe Amato. Nationals in Gainesville, Florida. That is the finals in Top Fuel Eliminator. Dick LaHaie making his last moment preparations for the run as his daughter and crew chief, Kim, looks on intently. Just a few moments ago, Steve Evans had a chance to stop by the LaHaie pit area.
A lot of attractive young girls in their early 20s dream of being actresses, models, airline stewardesses, the glamour jobs. Well, Kim LaHaie considers what she's doing right now to be a glamour job because she may help her dad win an important drag race. Kim, you get a little greasy down here, don't you, kid?
Well, I get a little bit dirty, but it's a lot of fun.
You know, you guys are running a very conservative operation here. You're not putting a lot of pistons in like the Joe Amatos and some of the others.
Uh-huh. We have to run it pretty conservative so that we can race all year. We have to race weekend to weekend and make a living at it, so we try to be real conservative.
Well, all this oil can't be too good for the hair and the complexion.
Well, actually, the oil is probably the best conditioner for your hair there is.
Kim LaHaie, great attitude.
Steve, she's got a great attitude and has done a great job wrenching on her father's car. That's Dick LaHaie in the far lane. He's racing against the defending champion, Joe Amato. Amato, the quickest elapsed time in eliminations thus far, has got to be considered the favorite going into this run. For LaHaie, he once again gets stuck in the lane that nobody else wants. He's been the master of it thus far and is once again with a hole shot over Joe Amato, and Dick LaHaie pulls away at the finish in a stunning upset. A brilliant driving job, and Kim LaHaie showing the emotion of the moment as her father is the Gator Nationals champion at 5.65 seconds, and what a beautiful grin on the face of Kim LaHaie. The driving job by Dick LaHaie against Joe Amato, another hole shot. The car performing flawlessly as the wheels just touching the pavement as he dances up the starting line. And as we see Dick LaHaie's car not missing a beat, a full car length or more ahead of Joe Amato at the finish.
Dick LaHaie being congratulated by the Joe Amato crew. Jerry Amato giving him a hug, said if we had to get beat, it might as well be by a real good guy. And Kim, you got to be proud of your dad today.
Hey, he's been doing an excellent driving job all day. He's just doing fantastic.
What a job this young lady has done. I mean, on the engine, under the engine, anywhere she had to be.
Yeah, we actually hurt 2 pistons at this race. We hurt one in the second round and one in the third round, and I think we got her fixed now. It didn't hurt anything that run, and you know, I couldn't do it without this lady right here.
It's nice to win a big one and know you haven't already spent the money and parts you broke to do it.
Oh, I hope to tell you, yeah. I mean, the one cylinder head never came off the engine. We had to take the left one off twice.
Congratulations, both of you.
Thank you very much.
A brilliant driving job, a masterful performance as a mechanic by the LaHaie family. Our congratulations to all the champions, Dick LaHaie, Kenny Bernstein, and Warren Johnson, the professional winners at the Gator Nationals. The executive producer of Diamond P Sports is Harvey M. Palish. Produced and directed by John B. Mullen. The 1985 Gator Nationals have been brought to you by Budweiser. For all you do, this Bud's for you. And by Goodyear. Goodyear tires and Goodyear service for more good years in your car. And by Ford. Have you driven a Ford lately? Promotional consideration provided for and a fee paid by Suzuki. Choice of 10-time national champion Terry Vance. See the complete line of world-class performance bikes at your Suzuki dealer today. Suzuki works like a single moving part. And by Konica. Konica CV301 color video camera weighs only 1.6 pounds and is designed for easy use. Furnished by Konica. And by Tegrin. If what you have isn't ordinary dandruff, switch to Tegrin medicated shampoo. It medicates the scalp. Tegrin medicated shampoo. And by Persona Blades. Tough guy personified. Get a smooth shave that's not tough on your wallet. Get personified. And by Boraxo. Boraxo hard-working hand cleaners for hard-working hands. Powdered, waterless cream, and heavy-duty liquid from U.S. Boraxo. NHRA Gatornationals has been a presentation of Diamond V Sports.